It was late at night when Jungkook was walking down the road. There was no one with him, not even his guards. They probably didn't even know where he was. He had his hands in his pocket as he followed a certain rhythm of footsteps ahead of him. His eyes were glued to the pavement. The sky turned pitch black and the neighborhood was quiet. The footsteps a few feet ahead of him could be heard so perfectly. They always produced a kind of melody which his heart found peace in. Every night, he would follow them from afar to make sure that one person reached home safe, and so he could sleep better at night. He found her first time in an unexpected place. She seemed lost, yet she managed to capture his eyes along with his heart. At the first sight, she was dressed in a knee-length dress, while her beachy waves flew around, adding beauty to her features. Jungkook never believed in those things, but it was like a movie scene where everything around him seemed to disappear, while she was the only light who remained in his darkness. He stopped at a certain point when she reached her home. She looked around first to make sure no one was following her, as per routine, then stepped inside. Shadows always consumed him, and she was never able to catch on him following her, even when she would make sure, time to time, that no one followed her. As much as he was glad for not being caught, it was a concern on its own that she was failing to protect herself. What if she is followed by someone else? He stayed there for a while, staring at her home. Till now, he was aware of her routine too. She would close the curtains of the whole home before turning on the light of her room on the upper floor. It would turn off after an hour and she would go to bed. Jungkook, this is insanity, he whispered to himself before closing his eyes. Her hands, her eyes, her smile, everything about her only drove him mad. Jungkook, I'll make you mine, then no one will ever hurt you. Jungkook returned home, getting out of his hoodie. No matter how alert the security was, he was always able to teach them. Every time, he had to meet her. Minjun, a bullet kills, even if you are Jungkook. Minjun, Jungkook's head of security, said, while he stood against the bar counter Jungkook had built in his home. Jungkook, focus on enemy instead of trying to capture me. Jungkook walked to his room as he replied to him. Minjun, at least give me a clue where you run off to, so if something goes wrong, I'll know where to come. Jungkook, then find a clue when something goes wrong. But for now, you stay away from that place, no matter what. It's mine to visit. He closed the door to his room behind him, and Minjun exhaled. His boss had always worked realistically. There was something wrong with him, for surely, and he wondered if he was on drugs. Jungkook plopped down on his bed after getting done with his night routine and closed his eyes. Morning, evening, night, even his dreams, they were all occupied by one person. It used to make him mad. He couldn't afford distractions, but he gave in to it after fighting it for a long time. Once Jungkook tried to talking to her as well. Flashback. Jungkook was dressed in his casual, formal outfit as he stared at Wine from a distance, sitting outside a cafe while reading her book. Today was the day he decided to interact. He wanted to know about this lady. Finally, getting time off his work, he came here. When he advanced towards her, a kid took her attention. The little child in arms of another woman, one table away from her. Wine waved at him, while the kid waved back happily. Just little acts of her would drive him mad. The child slid off his mother's arms and crawled towards Wine. He extended a rose towards her, which she took happily. It was as if that one kid made her day. She looked good, with flowers. He noted. When the mother took her child back, Wine thanked her. However, she didn't say a single word. She simply used hand gestures to pay her gratitude. Junko found it strange, but went ahead. Jungkook, excuse me. Wine looked up at him with questionable looks, yet there was softness and kindness on her face. Jungkook, can I take a seat here? She nodded, and Jungkook sat down, getting comfortable. Jungkook, I saw you reading a book. I thought I could ask for some suggestions. Don't mind me, I'm just a beginner, getting into reading. She smiled as she closed the book, showing him the title, then did some gestures with her hand. That was when Jungkook understood. She couldn't speak. Jungkook was not great at it, but he could understand the sign language to some extent. He couldn't make the gestures either. It was a basic level knowledge. Like knowing basics of foreign language you can't speak, but can make out what other is trying to say. Ryan, I really like when men appreciate reading. It makes me happy. When Jungkook didn't reply, her smile fell a little. She wondered if he couldn't understand what she was saying. She almost reached her pen to note it down, but that's when he spoke. Jungkook, I'm honored. A man doesn't grow without knowledge and emotions. Her shoulders fell in relief. Jungkook was completely fine with her disability. It didn't waive his madness for her even once. The excitement in her eyes grew as she continued. Wine, I can recommend you a lot of books if you let me know your taste. Jungkook. Then Miss. She wrote her name on her hand and showed it to him. Miss Wine, I'm Jungkook. It's a pleasure meeting you. He said. Wine. Likewise. Jungkook. So I was saying, how about a coffee next time? Where I would love to let you know about my interest and take your recommendations. Wine was flustered at his style of asking her out on a date. It was so obvious, the way he approached her and asked her out using books as an excuse. She nodded, and the two exchanged their numbers. Jungkook dialed his number on her cell phone, and when she extended to take her phone back, he held her hand, looked in her eyes, and slowly kissed the back of it before returning her the phone. She bit her lower lip and looked down, saving his phone number. Jungkook, I can't wait, mine. I can't wait to make you mine. He thought in his head, then stood up. Jungkook, thank you for your time. Please enjoy reading and have a good day. She thanked him, then waved at him as he left her side. That night, he followed her home to make sure she was safe, and that's when his obsession of following her home started. To be continued.